We're live.
We are live. Hi, No Nonsense fam. This is the No Nonsense podcast. I'm your host, Nmabuelhawa. We got our co host here, Oscar Montiel. Today is June 30th, Tuesday, June 30th, 2020. It's going to be Wednesday, July 1st soon. But today we're gonna talk with Oscar. We're going to, you know, we're gonna get down and dirty. We're gonna get personal, and there's lots Oscar has to, would like to talk about. But let's first start with the small talk. So, Oscar, what you have for dinner tonight?
So it was kind of the it was kind of lunch and dinner per se, just because um I because you and I slept kind of at 4 a.m. I woke
Yeah,
up
we
at
went
like
to sleep
12
real late.
12
hmm
p. I woke up at 12:30 p.m.
At least I woke up earlier than you once in my life. Um, rare for that to happen, but
12:30 p.m. and then I had a little bit of cereal just because my appetite wasn't high. And then my sister ordered Chick-fil-A like 3 hours later. Got that and didn't need anything since.
yeah, I had some real good Rango's. It was called Rango's Tex-Mex Grill, but it was like Mexican food more. I got some seafood enchiladas with scallops and shrimp. They were coated, obviously melted cheese, and then I got some real good guacamole and chips and frijoles, beans, and some Mexican rice. And ooh, wee man, that was pretty good. But you know what Mexican food does to you? It makes you feel like you're in a food high. So hopefully I don't crash at some point. What you get from chicken fillet? What you get from Chick-fil-A? Chick-fil-A.
Just spicy chicken sandwich because I had to be mindful. My sister was paying for it this time, so whenever she's paying for it, I kind of
Did you get that spicy chicken sandwich deluxe with the tomatoes and stuff
no,
like
I
that, the
don't care.
pickle?
I don't care for that. I don't care for that. Just because
Oh,
here
okay.
the Chick-fil-A here in Woodbridge, the vegetables are kind of a tad bit questionable.
And I know we'll talk more about this in a future episode, but one thing I really commend about you and your siblings is you guys seem to have such a strong bond. I know something as simple as getting Chick-fil-A is a simple but most meaningful gesture, but I and lots of the responsibility falls on me, and we'll talk about this in a future episode. I have to make more of a concerted effort to connect and to engage with my siblings, my sisters, and my younger brother. So, but yeah, I mean, it's time to talk. It's a Tuesday night. We, we care to keep it real and keep it human with our viewers. And yeah, let's talk. I know there's some stuff on your mind, Oscar. So, you know, take it away. The floor is yours, and
Yeah.
all respect to you, man.
All right. So we know. By the way, we came up with this idea with on Sunday when we got Naeem's a little bit of Naeem's backstory. I know that maybe some of you are wondering. Okay, we know a lot about Naeem, but we don't know a, a lot um a lot of about Oscar. So I'm just gonna take this opportunity and um let you guys in on certain things about my life. So, as we covered in our pilot, or I think we covered a tad bit, I just didn't get into detail. So, I wasn't born blind. Like I am was my condition. I ended up losing my vision when I was 4 years old due to the hydrocephalus, which is water in the brain, and because of I don't know if it was because of maltreatment, uh, malpractice. I don't know the full story because my family really doesn't know themselves to this day. Um, so when that happens, when you have hydrocephalus, you have to get a what's the a drain per se, which is called a shunt, and that will drain, water, make sure that the water doesn't overflow and destroy any of the nerves. So unfortunately, again, I don't know if it's because of maltreatment or malpractice that the drain didn't work for me when I was a kid, before I was 4 years old, and due to that, water overflowed, destroyed the ocular nerve, lost my vision, may have lost part of my memory because I ended up having a stroke due to pain and stuff like that. I had a headache at that time as well, but I don't know because if you ask me, because I do get that question, do you remember seeing, or I get the statement, the general statement, hey, then what it feels like to see, and I say no, I don't, because I don't remember. I don't know if it's because of the stroke or anything else. So yeah, that's a little bit about my eye condition, or whatever you would like to call it. So with that being said, because I was a blind little kid, I was sheltered almost all my life. I was very like um, overprotected. Sorry, until I've reached you know VRCBVI days. If you guys didn't check out our pilot, I suggest you do, just because spoilers. You've been warned. Spoilers ahead. So then, um, I was sheltered all my life from preschool all the way up to high school. And there were times where, I did have enough of it. When I started high school, uh, I, let me back up. So in middle school, I had an awesome vision teacher. Those teachers actually help the, blind in the school system, provide, services. Her and I bonded on a level where, um, I could tell her my personal problems. Her and I can, go all day talking sports and stuff like that. So, that was a very good, student, teacher relationship. But then in eighth grade, I got switched over to another vision teacher. Um, she when she first started, helping me out, she noticed that I didn't, advocate for myself, or you know, speak my mind when it needed to be spoken. And my response to that was, well, I'm only 15 years old. Like, no one cares what a 15-year-old thinks, much less, why do I need to, speak my mind? And she broke me out of that. She was like, out of that mentality. She was like, no, because you're 15. Yeah, you're 15 now. Yeah, but you're gonna be like 20, 21, and when you're 20, 21, that's when you have to speak your mind and get out there more. So it took a little while, but she was like, we're going to set you up an email account. I want you to be more, self advocate for yourself. And that took off. And that was my eighth grade year. And, during eighth grade, it's time to figure out, what high school you're going to attend, so on and so forth. So I decided to choose C.D. Hilton High School, which is known for their language program. I think it's called, the acronyms are CISL, Sizzle. Um, and that school isn't known for, well, wasn't known. for having any blind individuals in their school system, like at all. Like I was their first blind student. So I at the beginning, uh, I think I have touched on this before when I first showed up to that school. Typical freshmen, and if you're an arrogant freshman who thinks you don't get lost, you know everything, you're wrong. Just to let you guys know that's the wrong way of thinking of it, because when you're a freshman in high school or freshman in anything to that matter, there are things that you don't know. So, I guess I got lost. A lot of, teachers and, staff, students felt responsible that I got lost. So, they took it upon themselves without consulting me and, my vision teacher and, the school system, that they would have me um, escorted everywhere. And please tell me if I'm wrong, Naeem, because I do want to get you involved in a little bit of the conversation. School lunches aren't the best. True or false?
Um, it's hard to make it black and white, but I think to a degree I could say true.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
School systems aren't. It's not all
yeah.
bad, but there are
I
some
mean, it's a
missable.
public school,
Yeah.
so it's hard to expect a lot from a public school system. Budgets are tight, folks are crowded. Each teacher of the visually impaired has a heavy caseload. There's a lot of that, but at the same time, it's where we live here in Northern Virginia. We have some of the best public school systems in the country. If you're living in the Bronx or Queens, New York, or in inside LA, Los Angeles, then what we have is truly a blessing compared to some of those places where it gets real crowded and overpopulated school systems. So
No,
in
but
ways,
the
private schools are better, but there
the,
are
the
ways where, yeah.
yeah.
But
The
the
point.
vision structure is set up a little complicated. I will say Fairfax County, where I came from, has higher ratings than Prince William County, where
Prince
you
William
come from,
does.
for the vision department, vision students programs, stuff like that. But yeah, to answer your question in quick, pretty much true.
Yeah. So I lost trust in school lunches and stuff like that, just because I had horrible experiences. So I wouldn't eat lunch, but I was forced to eat lunch because they were like, oh my gosh, a blind kid, he doesn't eat lunch. But wait, you know we still have to protect him from like not getting hurt or getting trampled. So, and lunchtime is lunchtime. So we're just gonna have to force him to eat lunch. We're gonna have to watch him eat lunch as well. So that didn't help. I finally, my family, because I did involve my family and everyone else, had enough, of that school, treating, the blind kid uh, don't want to sound disrespectful, but a person that can't think for themselves. But so I finally broke through with that. That teacher helped me out through my freshman year, and it helped a bit. But then into my sophomore junior year, some personal issues came up. Just to let you guys know that my parents are divorced. My mom remarried, but when I was 17, they decided to go their separate ways. So, my sophomore year and junior year weren't the best. I don't know if it was because, my home life uh, was bad. I don't know if it's because we lost our house in the midst of everything, um, but my grades weren't the best. Let's just say that I barely squeaked by. So senior year, that's like everything changed. I don't know what it was that had me. I think there were some personal there were some issues with the school system because I did fail what we call the standards of learning, the English exam and the writing portion. I failed both of those, and there was miscommunication um, during the summer. So we had an emergency meeting, and I was told, which again I'm going to let you. I think you and I have had this discussion, but I want you to get your opinion on it. A lot of the department for the not well, what is it called? Disability services. Let's just call it disability services because I can't remember what it's called at the moment. Of the high school, she was a really good, caring teacher. I would actually also talk to her about my personal issues. Asked me, where was that, fire? Because I guess I wasn't trying hard enough with school or whatever, and that was kind of seeping into my senior year. She was like, "Where's that fire that you had freshman year and parts of sophomore year? Like that's all gone. Like this isn't like the you that your freshman year you were very outgoing. You cared about your schoolwork, but sophomore and junior year you just faded out. Like you just didn't care. And we want that Oscar from freshman year that would prove the doubters wrong. Like not this. They didn't call me trash, but like not this Oscar that doesn't just goes with the flow and doesn't care about anything. Like I guess that's what they were saying because they were like we want that Oscar back as what they were saying. What is your take on people telling you that? Uh, I am still okay.
Yeah, I'm still with you. I'm still with you. It's hard, because I have always faced a parallel situation. I have had points where I would get so dedicated to proving the doubters and the haters wrong. But what would always end up happening is I'll try so hard that I will either burn out because I go into overdrive trying to prove them wrong, or I get to a point where I lose motivation in trying to prove them wrong because I don't see why I'm doing it. They don't, frankly, the haters don't care. They will throw shade and just go about their way thereafter. So then there was a big chunk of my life where I was doing that. Then I fell into the opposite slump for a while where I said, "Oh, I don't care about anything. Just let it be," type thing. And that resulted in me never lighting a fire under my rear, me never, putting my feet to the fire, as they would say, because I said, I don't care what they think, y'all. I'm gonna just go ahead and keep on doing as I do. And that solution didn't work out either, obviously, because you have to have regard and you have to have responsibility in framing who you are and in framing what self image you want to produce for yourself. So I think it's hard to say, care about what the haters think, but at the same time, because you shouldn't, you will burn out. But at the same time, you can't say I have no regard for anyone. I think a happy medium, and I think the medium is realizing you're not doing this for the haters. You're doing this for yourself and your own self-image, and for you to grow and to cultivate yourself. And I think there's a lot of that in who you are, Oscar. I know you're going to talk further into the future here in a little while, but you, as a person who I know, and I met you later after this part of your life that you're talking about here, um, as a person I know, you've always done what is best for you, and you always had made the effort and continue to make the effort to look into the long term for you, not into the long term for others, nor would you go to the extreme opposite and just worry about the here and now. You would plan for the future, but you'd plan in a way where it's your future. And that's not a selfish, that's just at the end of the day, you got to carry your own load because no one's going to carry your load for you, and you shouldn't be expected to carry anyone else's load for them. And that's not selfishness, that's just self responsibility and commitment to oneself. But I know you're talking about a different stage in your life here where there was a transformation. Now, was that transformation due in any way to a lack of motivation? Was there a slump or a depression? Or was it a situation where you just didn't care, but you weren't hurting in any way?
Okay, so let me answer that. So, as I stated before, this teacher that I had, vision teacher that is, that I had in eighth grade and ninth grade, she actually had more of preschoolers. So I guess her advisor assigned her to just preschoolers and elementary schoolers or whatever. So they actually gave me someone. They were like, here, we're your new teacher is going to be this person, and that teacher, her main focus was another student. I will not divulge uh, their name, just confidentiality. But she was in middle school, so that teacher literally spent my sophomore year, worrying about her. And because, in my opinion, she didn't care enough about me to, get my IEP going, um, uh, get my IEP going, or help me with, my classes. Um, I just, whatever resources the school gave me, I went with. I just, I didn't go to her for anything. So then, on top of that, the family issues, piled up on that. So that bled into that, and then junior year, you know, things were there. Just I think it was just I was going through some more family problems because that was actually the tip of the iceberg, as they like to call it. Um, that that spilled over to that, and I just really didn't care at that point. I didn't try my best. I'm gonna be quite honest, I didn't. But there were some flashes, and I get what teachers were saying, because here's the thing. It's funny how doubters turn into critics that end up being your supporters. That's been my main experience, because at the beginning, freshman year, there were doubters, but little by little, they finally saw me for me, and they're like, oh, he is a guy that can do normal people things. Okay. And then they realize, and then they finally became my number one supporters. They always had my back with whatever I needed. They would always tell us, if this person isn't available, come to me. If this person, if the other person said, oh, I'm not available, the other person would, okay, come to me. So I built that foundation. But it came to the point that junior year, I just didn't go to anyone regarding my problems. And I believe that actually no, it was my sophomore year that my mom also had cancer, and I remember this that when she had cancer, I literally, I kid you not, Naeem, I shut everyone out of my life for like the next few weeks. Like I would show up to classes, yeah, I would go to a hangout spot, for lunch, and people, would try to talk to me, but I wouldn't talk to them. And a lot of people, were trying to like ask me, what's going on with it, and I would just, shrug them off. Like there were days that I didn't utter a word to any of my friends or the teachers that I would normally talk to. So I don't know, like just I hope I answered your question as much as I could. But yeah, that was that was my high school experience per se. Naomi, you still with me?
He announces the link. Um, yeah, no, it's. I think a question becomes: was there an extreme sense of self reliance where you didn't want to seek out any aid, or was it an identity based thing? Like, what was it that really motivated that reaction from you? Like, what was the root?
I think it's my personality because I remember my family, when it was the five of us. So just another backstory, guys. I'm I have two siblings. I'm the middle child, and then it was my parents. I remember that there was this discussion that our family had. I believe I was 12 or 13 at the time. Can't maybe I think I was a preteen to into my teenage years. That and each of us were our parents would ask John, my brother, what's your biggest weakness? He responded, and due to confidentiality, I won't say anything. They asked my sister again, Alma, what's your biggest weakness? She responded. And then when they came to me, they were like, Oscar, what's your biggest weakness? And I honestly said, I don't know. And to be honest, I quite frankly don't want to, I'm just gonna, stay quiet. Can we just move forward? And that's what they said. They're like, see right there, and they're like, exactly their words. Like, see right there, you're too closed off to people. You don't let anyone in on on your feelings and stuff like that. That's your biggest weakness, and that's how I am. Like I don't know what it is that I begin to have like I have trust issues right off the bat. Naeem, you can vouch for that. That I don't trust people right away. You know, um, due to I've had friendships that you know I got complaints with those relationships that they don't get enough of my thoughts. So that's another thing. Like especially with my mentality is people don't need to know my family life. That is for me and my family to know. You know, unless I'm in a psychologist esque setting, that would be the exception. But um, we'll get into that name. I don't know if I filled you in on that detail, but I I think that's something more off screen that you and I have to talk about. My experience at a with a shrink and stuff like that. Just because um, it's a little bit more entertaining, but just for all intents and purposes, not to talk on air. But anyways, so so in high school, I obviously senior year, proved some of the whatever doubters I had left, crossed that stage. In fact, I remember, and this was what made a huge difference, because I remember that teacher said to me at the beginning of my senior year, where have you been? Or, where's that Oscar from freshman year? And I always think about that. Because I guarantee you, Naeem, that Oscar that, just didn't, care about anything in sophomore, junior year would have went along with this. So I remember in senior year, there was an administrator that kind of, treated me and the other blind individual at our school like we didn't know what we were doing. That that we should become, that she needs to take care of us. So her initial, thought was, okay, since Oscar can't, see where he's going for the stage, we're just gonna have him do sighted guide. Which, if I don't think we have ever explained this in our podcast name on our episodes, can you explain what sighted guide is?
Yes. Sorry. I should learn a quicker way to mute and unmute and do all that. I hear there's like a two-finger double tap type thing with
No,
voiceover.
that's only relevant for Zoom, by the way.
For Zoom.
Yeah,
Okay, good.
not for Skype.
So sighted guide. Sighted guide is um it's where you reach out to a sighted individual. Some people argue it should be called human guide because it doesn't have to be a sighted individual. A blind individual can be your guide. And you link with them, so you grab onto their elbow. There's proper method, and you walk side by side with them, and you use your cane to cover your arc and cover your area. But you walk with them, and they're kind of sort of a guide, but more so an equal than a leader. You guys are walking together. So that's sighted guide. There's lots of question into what's proper sighted guide, how much control should the consumer of sighted guide have to
Yeah,
ensure their independence and their
yeah,
authority over their space.
I think that's a mini episode in itself, but our viewers I think got the idea. So like, so that was the administrator's idea, and when I first heard about that, you know, I literally said angrily to the vision teacher that was there my senior year. I was like, what does she think she's doing? Like, does she not know who I am, or does she not know who she's dealing with? No. Like I remember I actually like said in anger, I'm like, I'm gonna go talk to her, right now. That was my thought process, but I had to like get a lot of restraint. Like the teacher was like, no, don't. I can see that you're kind of upset, and something that you'll know about me is that when I am angry, I let my anger get the best of me. So I things slip out. I allow my anger to get out of control, and I think Diane, you can vouch for that. Um, so I had to tell the administrator nicely that thanks for your concern, but no thanks. But she was still on the spiel that no, whatever I say goes. Well, thankfully, I didn't have to deal with that long enough, because I think that within a few weeks, she actually, um, I don't know if it was because she was on vacation or if she got fired or what it was. Um, Needless to say, she wasn't a problem. So I remember graduation. uh, in here in Prince William, we have to, all graduates have to show up early to, get in their spots for graduation. Naeem, please clarify if that's the same way for you guys. But I remember perfectly that I, told my vision teacher, hey, are you gonna go to, my graduation? And she was like, yeah, yeah. Do you need a ride? And I said, yeah, I actually do. I need a ride because I want to show up earlier than usual, earlier than anyone else. In fact, I want to show up when teachers are there, so that way I can practice crossing the stage. So the vision teacher ended up picking me up. She was like, yeah, I'll take you. Picks me up. Um, the disability services representative that was there, she was like, I showed up, and I got to go like take a look at went inside the stadium. She's like, do you want to practice going the stage? I was like, yep. I'm like, that's why I'm here early. And we practiced it a few times, and during the graduation, um, crossed, got the loudest pop that I've ever like heard in my life. And during when I crossed the stage, I remember it was very loud. So then I crossed the stage. Obviously, a few months later, went to VRCBVI. Unfortunately, uh, you know, things with my brother um, happened, so I had to cut my tenure there a little short. Tried Nova for a couple of years, but that didn't work out just because the school system or the system put in place in Woodbridge wasn't for me. I remember I was a computer science major, um, heading into the fall of 2018, I want to say. But then I decided to switch over to a cybersecurity major, but that didn't work out just because I didn't get the results that I wanted, just because, again, the system put in place in Woodbridge, in my opinion, failed me. I know that's a hard word to say, Naeem. If you have a nicer word, please let me know what it is. But in my opinion, it failed me at the time. I know that now it's a lot better actually than what it was. But now I'm studying to with intellectual point, cybersecurity certificates and stuff like that. So yeah,
So
that's my life, and
I think I don't think it would be fair to describe it as a failure. It was more so a lesson that helped you grow in character, grow in determination, grit, resilience, helped you grow in and independence, self-advocacy, empowerment, helped you grow in other regards. And it was just you changed your MO, you changed your agenda. The mission went down a different road, not a better or worse road, just a different road. Decisions had to be made that were not foretold of, were not expected before. But now you're saying it's much better. So the right decisions ultimately were made. It's hard to ever know what's the quote unquote best decision, because the best decision is it's never going to be known. But as long as you've made a decision that's correct for you, that's suited you, that was right in its own way, that yielded positive results, then that's a good decision. That's the right decision. You could never know if you had followed through and pushed through all the obstacles, whether that would have been a better course or not. Maybe it would have been a worse course anyway. But what you do know is where you are now, emotionally, psychologically, and in terms of academic acceleration, career based progress, um, is closer to your goals and in a better place, in a better position than where you were at the time. But there were lessons to be gained. I would I would venture to assume.
Yeah.
Allow me to ask, you have, quite a complex story, and you are quite a complicated character, many positives, of course. Um, have your experiences allowed you to better understand your strengths, your weaknesses, what ticks you off, what makes you happy, what are your pet peeves, what makes you upset, what brings you down, what rises you up? Have those experiences built your character?
Yeah. And I'm gonna say that, well, and I know that yes is the fast answer, but I'm gonna try to elaborate on that, because with experiences that you gain, you end up building a foundation, and with the type of person that I am, I can adapt. Granted, it could take me a you know a while, but I eventually adapt to my surroundings. So with the life experiences, little by little, I take a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and I build the foundation off of it.
And have you found that that foundation you have built is yours? Have you found that it has rooted you, cemented you further in the ground in terms of establishing your character?
Please, please dim it down, just because again, I don't want to give you another yes, like a quick answer. So
So you have, as you've communicated, had some low points in this journey or in your journey up to now. There's so much more to be had in your journey. But up to now, you've had some low points and you've had some high points, and you found out what your low points are and what fuels those low points and what fuels those high points. You found out what obstacles you more successfully overcome and which ones, there are just certain battles not worth picking, so to speak. So, have you become more comfortable in your skin, more confident in who you are? Have you learned, you know, which methods in skills building and which methods in life hacks, which methods in character building and morale boosting um, work better for you. So could you tell me now, for example, what your strengths and weaknesses are better than you were able to 3 or 4 years ago?
yeah, again, I when I'm again now I get the sense that because something that my siblings do tell a lot of people is that a lot of things don't bother me, which to an extent it's true. It's true. But sometimes they take that saying for granted. Because um, when I do tell them something that bothers me, it's they shrug it off as a joke. Um, I'll give you an example. Let me see here. So let's okay, say that we're at a gathering, and when at some people's homes, it's customary to know you to take off your shoes, take off your jacket, whatever. I don't know if it's because I lost nerves in my in my feet, which like I can't like it takes me a while to take off my shoes, take off my shoes and stuff like that, and it takes me a while to put them back on. So I remember at this one gathering, um, it's customary to take off your shoes and put them back on when you're done. And my sister let it slip. After the gathering, she was like, "Well, Oscar and I have to go upstairs," and she kind of not said it like very loud, but loud enough for if people care to hear that they would have heard it. Um, she was like, because Oscar takes for you take forever to put on your shoes. And I remember when we stepped outside and we were in the car, and I was like, by the way, I would greatly appreciate it. Granted, it is true. I'm not going to say it's not. But I would greatly appreciate it that, you keep that to yourself, or you say it to me in the car, in the confines of my own, home, or, whatever. But don't say it, in public, because, like I'm not the type of person that likes attention to be like drawn to myself. Like I'm not that type of person. Went for my vision teacher. I remember. So she has a hearing a hearing disability. She's not completely deaf, but sometimes she can't hear herself. So I remember one time in class, I think I was I don't know. Well, I'm admittedly, I'm kind of glad that she did it, but it's unnecessary. I was probably sleeping during the class, admittedly, but and her and I came to an agreement that she was gonna drop off certain things to me for that class, and and I'm the type of person that likes to sit like where the teacher, is, where like at her desk. So if I have a question, I can ask the teacher right there, right then and there. Um. So next thing the teacher's teaching or whatever, and I hear the teacher say yell Oscar from like across the hall, like, or across the room. I did not appreciate that. I'm gonna be honest. Like, I know that she was trying to get my attention, but she could have done it one or two ways. She could have you know instead of yelling Oscar across the room, do what any sensible other teacher does. Because tell me if I'm wrong, Naeem, or how other teachers in your county, some teachers would knock on the door and say, hey, Miss So and So, I need to talk to pull Oscar out of class for a second. Is that okay? She could have done that, or she just could have waited for to give my materials after the class, because I would come to see her in between classes. So yeah, that's the type of person I am. I'm the person that doesn't like to be you know doesn't like to get the attention, as they say. Like, I don't like attention being drawn to me, and that's something I've learned to stand up for myself when I do need to. That's something that I have learned and that I have instilled in my foundation. So
I've learned teachers just as any other humans, of course, needless to say, all have different styles of approaching their students, have different styles of approaching conversation, have different styles of approaching situations. And I have learned that teachers whose styles don't seem to align with mine, I would, in a respectful and proper way, try my hardest to communicate. Hey, I think we're not seeing eye to eye in communication style, in communication fashion. There are the simple rules of etiquette. Private or confidential information must always remain private and confidential, right? And I know most, if not all, instructors, teachers adhere to that. There have been a couple slip ups in my experience with some teachers. I don't think intentional as much as, we're human and we do that sometimes. However, I have seen teachers who unintentionally or sometimes accidentally So I think in both ways unintentionally draw attention to the blind student. Oh, hey, Naeem has a question in this class. I think, I
Yeah.
at some points I should have gotten better at advocating for myself, but there are times when I would like to gently remind them, hey, I can advocate for myself. If I have a question about what's up on the board, I will either quietly ask you or I'll walk over to the head instructor, the teacher at the head of the classroom, and ask them, after class, hey, could you tell me a little bit about what was up there on the board? I
No, yeah, and
think, when we're young,
yeah, yeah.
advocacy and self advocacy and communication is a little hard, and that's understandable, and that's why some teachers want to help out. They don't mean any harm. But once we get to our teenage years, our teenage age, we have to ensure that we control our own narrative. We control our own MO, so to speak.
So unfortunately, um, in elementary school, I never got the opportunity to learn that or do that because I remember, um, so my family, they were born and raised in El Salvador. Okay, so their English skills, my mom could speak and understand up to a certain point, but it wasn't the best when I was in elementary school. It's gotten better, like, way better now. But back then when I was in elementary school, it took a long time. So there was this experience where I remember I was in third grade. It was actually um. So to let you guys know, in Prince William, when because I was blind, they decided to stick me with the special needs students per se. So I never, was able to, join um, the regular kids. Um, I would have like some classes here and there, but I didn't get to, experience that until like my fourth grade year, which turned into my third grade year, because I remember they made the decision to when I was in fourth grade, and I joined a third grade, class at the time, that it would be time for me to join that class. So I remember this vision teacher. We her and I had a complicated relationship when I was in elementary school. I'll just say that because she would always scold me for certain things, and I honestly didn't really care for them. But anyways, I guess that's a conversation for another time. Um, but I remember this one time where we were learning how to tell time, and I guess that my vision teacher forgot to leave the clock. Like there was like a braille made wooden clock they made for me, to help me learn with the students or whatever. I guess she either forgot or I don't know what happened, but I didn't have the clock, and the question was, on the clock, what time is it on the clock, on the assignment. And I asked the student, and I guess he misinterpreted my question. I'm like, hey, can you help me with the assignment? The question is what time it is. Can you tell me the hand position, the hands positions or whatever, is what I tried to ask. He misinterpreted it as, you know, give me the time shown on the clock, and he gave me a time, and I was like, well, that's not what I would ask, but okay, I guess I would write that down. Mind you, I was in elementary school, so I again, self advocacy or being clear wasn't instilled in me at that time. So I wrote it down. Vision teacher looks over my work because she needs to transcribe it, to turn it, so that way the teachers can grade my work. And she asked me like 30 minutes later. She was like, "Oscar, how did you answer that question without the clock?" And I simply said, the student, I asked for the student for help, and she was like, and I guess she misinterpreted me, and she was like, "So you cheated?" And I was like, "No, I didn't cheat." I asked him, the hands positions, but he misinterpreted that question instead of, and he gave me a time. But she was still stuck on, you cheated on the assignment, blah 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 blah. You're, you don't, if you don't, will strongly reconsider you, being taken out of, the regular ed, or being with, regular students. We'll put you back with the special needs. If you don't, put your act, get your act together. Why do I bring this up? Because my mom, because she would write notes to my mom and stuff like that. My mom would always check the notebook. My mom, also misinterpreted it as cheating. Needless to say, that vision teacher and I never got along. In fact, full disclaimer, I know that this is gonna probably sound bad, and uh, again, the reason why I'm not gonna mention any names is because I don't want this vision teacher to get wind of, what I thought of her. So I'll just, keep it at, her and, him, them, so on. I remember this one time when I think I was in the bathroom, and I think again I was just fed up with her accusing me of this, accusing me of that, mistreating, in my opinion, mistreating me, you know that I just had enough of it. I remember in the bathroom, and I simply in my head was like, I wish she would disappear, like I wish she would leave my, like, get out of my life. Don't ask me how, because I said this in my mind, or I whispered it, or I thought I whispered it like quiet enough for really like no one to hear me. But I remember this teacher, um, in the special ed class. She was like, "Yeah, I remember." Like, again, this vision teacher would always like find a way to fight with me, and the teacher decided to drop her 2 cents and said, "Yeah, he wishes that you would disappear. I heard him say that in the bathroom once." I was just taken aback when I was like, I'm like, okay, I know I whispered that, quietly, so unless you can read my mind, that's just crazy. Like, I found that, like, very crazy. Naeem, what is your take on that? I know you want to get your input on that story. Oh man.
Um, it's it's a lot, you know. Everyone has a different approach to how things work, and things happen where things get taken out of context. Like you used the example of where it was misconstrued you were cheating, um, but and that happens on occasion. But I think it just sounds like there was lots of times where, and you're young, you weren't expected to. There were times where you may have not been able to advocate for yourself effectively, and so
Just
others
because I
felt they
was
could
taught,
fill the role of advocating for yourself
yeah,
and
because
for
they
you,
that that's what that was their their thought of me. My mom to this day says you don't have to fight for anything. I would always fight on your behalf. So that became a main theme when I was in elementary school,
and that's simply the care of a mother.
parts of middle
Yeah.
school, and parts of high school. You know, So
Yeah, and that's simply the care of a mother. That's totally acceptable, right? There's nothing wrong with that at all. Um, I think, where it becomes a thing is when, once you get into your adult life, you should have been given ample opportunity to gain the experience of self-advocacy. So in your adult life, you'll be able to uh, effectively execute self-advocacy in its best form. Um, you know, a lot of what I heard in your story resonates with my story. Um, in my experience going through middle and high school, and I touched briefly on that in our previous episode with V Gaspa, but I think there's more to be said about that. I don't know if I should go down that road now or, but
well,
well, I could
you
I
you
I, I
you
could
can
cover
go
the
ahead.
important parts.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
can
I'll
go
cover
ahead.
the important parts. So elementary school looked pretty normal for me on the outside, but on the inside, looking back at it now, I was put at a major disadvantage, I will say. I was always praised to the high heavens for being a bright kid, and hey, I like to think I was. And it was always peaches and cream for me. Everything was good. I always got my way, if you will, in elementary school. And I
Give me an
guess that's the
example. Give me
natural.
an example because I've only heard like a handful. But
Um, through my own merit, for example, I made it to the top of the geography bee, and stuff like that, which is great stuff. Again, it was through my own merit. However, I could tell there was a greater emphasis and a greater level of praise bestowed upon me because I was quote unquote blind and able to do it. And the blindness should not have been an impacting factor. And, you know, it wasn't a major factor, but it was kind of always lingering in the voices of those who praised me. And you did all this while blind. And it was kind of like, it was the positive reinforcement that wasn't needed, the positive reinforcement that later proved to be destructive, right? Because all of a sudden I'm so good because I can do this blind. Like, what message are you sending to a kid when you tell them that? You almost give them this superhero personality, superhero characteristics. And
yeah,
then
and I got that in high school. I didn't get that much in elementary school or in middle school, but I got that a lot in high school.
I think with me, since I got it at an earlier age, it really impacted how I did things later on in life more significantly. What I mean by that is I always had this feeling, I always had this assumption, I always had this knowing, I guess, in my mind that, everything's going to resolve itself. I use a little bit of charm. I have a silver tongue, impress the folks, articulate well, and just kind of like have the blindness there flash as a little hint, and I'll get my way, you know. And that has even poured into some recent examples throughout my life, right? But that's because, and I can't put the full blame because eventually I was an adult and I had to restructure and readjust and realize that wasn't reality. And hey, it was unfortunate that I was given that alternate reality, but now I'm in the real reality and I have to shed that alternate reality and dispose of it fully. But, and I think it was a tightrope that was hard to walk because, dare I say this arrogantly, I did accomplish a lot and earn a lot through my own merits, through my own intelligence, through my own ability to earn what I've earned. So I'm not going to take any of my achievements and accomplishments away from myself. But I think if I had done all that fully sighted, it would have it would have I would have been described as exceptional. I would have been described as above average. I would have been described as brilliant, but I don't think there would have been all this applause surrounding it like there was, like there ended up being, because that added factor of the blindness. And I think most
Yeah.
people who did it didn't realize they were doing that, but it kind of just happened naturally. So that was a bit a bit problematic. And although its role is diminishing in my life now, I have caught myself a couple times falling back into those habits. Hey, I could get away with this because I've gotten away with it so many times before, you know?
Me personally, I just find it when I hear, "Oh my gosh, you can do this," and you're blind. I just find it comical. Like I'm not going to disclose the name, but I remember, the student that I went to high school with. She was blind herself. I think so. Her freshman year, uh, she took this biology class, and this teacher, well-meaning, but I guess she just never like came across a blind student like in her life. So I remember I forgot what assignment they were doing. I think it was like the Punnett squares assignment. Cross. What's that unit called when you do the Punnett squares and stuff like that? Uh,
Yeah, so that's a lot of like crossbreeding, and you learn how like I guess plants are bred and genetics and stuff like that
yeah. So I
in
think for her,
biology.
yeah, I think for her, they did something with like paper clips and plates or something like that. I forgot what like, but I remember that student. I think she either picked up a paper clip or placed the paper clip on the plate, and the biology teachers was like, "Oh my gosh, you're such a good girl."
Oh, you mean like that child is a good girl, good boy type thing?
Yeah.
You mean that?
Uh-huh.
Oh
Uh-huh.
God.
At first I find it annoying, but like at the like I end up laughing about it though, like later.
Oh God, that kind of stuff. That kind of stuff used to yeah, that kind of stuff used to make me go nuts when people would talk. Oh, you're such a good boy. You're so disciplined. You're so bright, man. You're so good boy. I'm like, look, I'm not your pet dog named Rover, so back off, please, and thank you. Um, maybe you name your dog Spot, not Rover. Maybe you could name him Stitch. I don't know. But the point is, my name is Naeem, and I'm a human. Very much. You talk to me like a human. Hey, man, great work. You know, that's all you got to say. Appreciate it. Great work, too. I will say, I guess I was at the advantage where I've never had, well, I haven't had too many people who say, can you do this blind? I've had more people say, after I've proved that I can do it blind, you can do this blind, which does make me feel good because I've shown, hey, blindness doesn't affect my ability to do X, Y, and Z. I got into a culinary academy my last year of high school. And although there were some trips and falls on the cobblestone streets, I was able, in the grand scheme of things, to prevail and succeed and grow in so many ways from taking that academy. So elementary school, back to elementary school for me. Elementary is elementary school or elementary school? I hear people say it both ways.
Both
Um,
ways. Yeah.
I basically graduated sixth grade being the positive talk of the class, you know.
Well, let's just
But
call it being
I
sent
think
off because it's not really a graduation.
yeah, being sent off. But there was so much like positive surrounding me, but it was a weird type of positive vibe. It was like folks praised me, but students anyway, kind of also approached me like I was from a different dimension. Like I had a few friends who were tight, don't get me wrong, a few friends who were close, but for the most part, kids were like, he's. They never said it outright. He's different. They never said that. So I don't want to put anything in anyone's mouth. But they approached me like, oh, he does his own thing. He's cool. He's amazing. I don't know. Maybe I intimidated them. Maybe they were scared of me. Maybe I had that cool kid vibe. I don't know. But it was kind of like it was distant praise. Distant praise. You know, I would get the praise of the folks. I was also to form a deep circle of friends. I went off to so I went to Robinson Secondary School, which was a middle and high school, a public high school, public secondary school. Uh, but it had a special program, the only in the county, for where blind and vision impaired students can have direct access to their teachers of the vision impaired, their TVIs, or teachers of blind students. And we were able to have direct access to them at all times whenever we needed them. And they kind of named that hallway where their offices were and where we would spend at least one of our class periods per day at They call that hall Vision Hall. So you can already see they're setting it up so that the other students in middle school are kind of like, oh, that's Vision Hall. You know, hey, Officer Harrison, our security guard. Um, uh, there's a fight going on in Vision Hall. He'll be like, I'll be right down. Like, like and kind of like, okay. So that was the established name. It's like naming something kind of segregationist in a way, in a
Yeah.
way. Um, and so what ended up happening socially is us blind vision impaired students naturally gravitated to each other and connected with each other, but sort of formed our own clique, if you will. Like, the cheerleaders and football jockeys have their own cliques. The STEM nerds, STEM kids have their own cliques. They're actually the most amazing folks, by the way. The emo kids have their own cliques. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like everyone had their own group going, and we just had our own group, which kind of put it so other students, sighted students, wouldn't really join our group, and we wouldn't really care to go out and join any of their groups and get to know them. So we kind of formed our own bubble, even though there wasn't necessarily a bubble. There wasn't blatant segregation, but the environment provided for such.
No, yeah.
And it became such a small community. Uh, Drama was easy to flare up. Too many stories of that. But I think eventually, amongst other things, I tried first sophomore year of high school to transfer to my base school for the culinary academy. To no success because the administrators at my base school, George C. Marshall High School here in Falls Church, Virginia, um, we're not sure that they had the infrastructure necessary because they were under construction. And one of the administrators had said, I worry you may not be able to navigate. We have some dark hallways due to some construction. Well, I'll tell you, good looking. Let me tell you, handsome. I don't need light in the hallways to navigate. Like I'm the least person who needs the light. Maybe you need the light more than I do, honestly. So,
So,
we laughed at that, but to no avail. Basically, it wasn't going to work that year. So I said, hey, I'm going to try my hand again junior year. I'm stubborn, if you guys don't already know that about me, and I'm going to get my way. I'm going to get my way. So I worked it junior year. It was almost a bloody battle. I had one advocate who was always on my side. I haven't really taken the opportunity to show them the appreciation, and I should. But you know, it was successful, and that advocate understood that this environment isn't going to help me face the real world and get real social experiences. We were a fish bowl. Fish will not be able to travel the ocean if they lived in a fish tank all their life. Um, so I ended up transferring to my base school, George C. Marshall High School, senior year. I attended the culinary academy, but I wasn't the blind kid anymore. I wasn't one of the blind ones. I wasn't, one of them. I was Naeem. And people were willing to get to know Naeem and who Naeem is. And that meant more than the world for me. I felt valued. I felt human. Like people personalized me. They attached me to a human being, to a character. I'm not saying people dehumanized me at the other place, at the other school, but there were people who really knew my name, you know? Oh, hey, hi, I know you're in my class. What's your name? I know this other blind kid named Jack, kind of thing. It's like, okay, here I
so
was Naeem, and
yeah.
I don't know that I really stood out for being blind either, because some people say, well, the reason they knew Naeem is because Naeem was the only blind kid. There were other blind folks at this school, but everyone was integrated. I had joined my own sort of cliques. I had gotten to know people. I had gotten to get engaged with folks, and it was just so much more meaningful. But then I sort of fell back into, for a short while, I managed to thankfully correct course, but I sort of fell back into this, oh man, he's doing it all on his own because he's blind. When I was part of the group of blind kids, well, we had some of the blind kids who were struggling a little more, so to speak. I was maybe at the top of the pecking order, or close to the top. I was, up there with one of the brighter blind kids, which kind of formed a hierarchy, but also showed that everyone is different, regardless of whether you're blind or sighted. You'll find hierarchies as well in the sighted world. But what was nice about being in this second experience, going to George C. Marshall High School, is I saw that I was just somewhere in the middle of the road. I was just average. I wasn't above average. I wasn't below average. I was at the
Yeah.
top of the pecking order. In this sighted world, in this real world, I'm pretty average. And I learned that more and more during training at VRCPPI. And I learned that there were many weaknesses I had to work through. College taught me a little more of that. But the biggest realization hit me when I was in my senior year of high school. Hey, bro, you're Naeem, but you're just Naeem. You're not Naeem the Great or Naeem the Magnificent. And that's all right. Because you're not Naeem the Terrible either. You're not Ivan the Terrible, Naeem the Terrible. But you're just average. You're just, you know, an average
Yeah. So
Joe, an average
so
Naeem.
so for me, it wasn't more well until this new student came along because I was a junior when she was a freshman. But I remember
Mm-hmm.
when I first stepped into the high school. They associated me more with a comic book character. For those who are into comic books and TV shows, Daredevil is the one they referenced me because he's a blind guy who does a vigilante per se. He uh like he's blind, but he uses like his super heightened senses, and sometimes um I don't blame them because there were times that I mean, to this day, a lot of people ask because I do like random things that make people question. Because I remember this one time. I remember when I was in my senior year. I think I stayed after school once. I forgot what it was, and I forgot why I needed to go to my government. Oh, I needed to go drop off some assignments off to him, and I would have like the teachers because they knew me so well would always try to like play pranks on me or whatever. So I stepped into the classroom, into his classroom. I'm like, "Hi, Mr. K. Uh, I'm here to drop off uh, some assignments for you." I think he was trying to like play around with me because I knew he was in the class, and I'm like, "Mr. K." And I picked up that it was that he was trying to play a joke. So I was trying like, and I heard it, and I heard his movements, and here I am with papers in my hand, trying to like hand them over to him. So here I am, I'm tracking his movements, and I think I cornered, like I ended up almost walking to his desk, and I think I like cornered him. So if like it's the fight or flight reaction. So I think he decided, to play a little joke. He wanted to like throw something at me, and I think like a box of of tissues was on his desk. So he picks it up and he flings it at me. Again, don't ask me how, but I stuck out my hand and I grabbed it like one-handed. And that
Daredevil
literally
after
freaked
all.
him out. Like that literally freaked him out. That literally
Oh.
like freaked him out. He was like, "How did you do that?" I'm like, "I don't know."
Yeah, I was compared to folks like Louis Braille. Oh man, you're gonna make some like massive invention in your life, maybe to improve blind folks. I was like, I'm just a regular person, and I don't even know that I want my future to be in the blindness community. So, pre going to my final high school, George C. Marshall High School, before that, I was kind of always put on a pedestal because, like I said, I was kind of close to the top of the pecking order in this clique of blind folks. If I wasn't first in command, I was probably second or third in command. We never really had a real hierarchy, but you could kind of tell who were
No,
the folks with authority. Who were the folks whose voices would be heard. And there were some smarter folks with us. Great friend of mine named David Bartling. but I think it also relied, they also relied heavily on who was more confident, who was willing to take charge. And I was one of those who was, admittedly, always willing to be a boss, be in command, stuff like that. So I was put up onto this pedestal. I didn't do anything to earn it, really, nor did I do anything to remove myself from the pedestal and humble myself either. So I have to make that clear. Nor did I earn it. Neither did I earn it, nor did I humble myself once I received it. But once I went to my, George C. Marshall High School, I was just there, and it felt great to be average. I don't know if it was the pressure of being expected to be in charge, or if it was like knowing I didn't deserve some of the credit that was being given to me. Credit for good things and credit for horrible things too. Like apparently I was so smart that I would be the one who would be accused of pulling off all the sneaky plots on the teachers of the visually impaired, and there was a whole web of lies I had gotten tied into a little bit before my departure to George C. Marshall High School. Kind of perfect timing, coincidental. That's a long story about a great TVI who I wish I could, uh, in collection with the rest of the student body at the time, apologize to, but also hope that she has since found success, right? But I think that's a different story, as you can tell. But the point of the matter is, I was given credit for the good, the bad, and everything in between, whether
So
I
I want
asked
to
for it
get
or
your
not.
so
Yeah,
so I want to get your opinion on, and this would be actually the final before we wrap this up. Is it just me, or like when there's a let's say, like for example in your high school,
you had cut
of
out. What was that? When there's a who?
when there's a group of blind,
Chalupa.
students, of
Hmm.
blind group of blind, um and let me like give you an example before I get your response of is there a mistake where people think group think, like all of you guys think one, like one mind thinks for all, and that mind decides everything. The reason why I asked that question is, so I remember in high school again, um my junior year, and this person, her freshman year, she came off, a lot of, she came off as, a lot more closed off than I did. She wouldn't talk to anyone except for, the vision teacher, because that's who she was comfortable with. I guess the way that she acted or whatever gave off the impression that people that she didn't like my friends or the people that I would associate with or whatever. And in turn, a lot of people ask me, they're like, "Do you truly like me?" And I'm like, and I would be, I'm like, "Why would you ask that?" Like, of course, some other people I would have known, like I've known for years. I'm like, I've known you for like years. Why would you ask, that like it's just, I feel like that other blind student doesn't like me. So like me, like I don't know. Do you guys like think the same? I'm like, no. Like she's, well, she can think for herself, and I can think for myself. Like I can make judgments for myself, and she can make judgments for myself. So like, what is your take on that? Like,
Yeah. So
especially with a huge group of you guys, from
yeah.
what you're telling
So
me.
so yeah. So not all blind people think alike, right? But what I had to learn, what people tried to force to teach me, I guess the opposite of groupthink, is that since I was revered and respected by some of the younger blind students, I was supposed to be a role model. And I always had to do right, be a model student, a model citizen to the other blind students at our high school, at our secondary school, pardon me. Um, and so having that burden upon my shoulders, um, was a little hard. Because you got to remember, I was a high school kid. I wanted to mess up a few times. I wanted to get myself into trouble, and it was going to happen whether I wanted it to or not. That's just part of being in high school, and particularly with guys, with boys. Admittedly, girls are better at staying out of trouble. But you know, the teachers of the visually impaired, for example, always would like pull me aside and have the serious conversation with me. You know, you're a role model. You know, you're leaving impressions on the younger students. You know, they're looking up to you. You know, you have to demonstrate, model citizenry. You know, you have to set the right example. You know, you have to be the poster child of a good, proper high school student, blind student who's, you know, doing the business, doing what they have to do, and get out. But no, blind students are regular students. We're going to get into fights with other guys in the locker room. We're going to spit profanities here and there. We're going to try to flirt with the girls. We're going to get rejected more times than girls would actually give us their numbers, and we'll go on dates, right? That's going to happen. And that is what happened. And for us to have to always model that blind students are the best because we're already fighting an uphill battle of proving that we're able, it's kind of like, no, you shouldn't add that extra responsibility. I should be a responsible individual. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to absolve myself from irresponsibility. But part of proving that we're able bodied and able minded is being able to make the same old mistakes that sighted students make. We're no holy angels, and we'll never play to be holier than thou. I will say a quick little secret. Being the average kid with all the mistakes at my later high school, George C. Marshall High School, got me more girls than being the head honcho of the blind gang, the blind mafia, the blind gangsters, right? But because I was just me, I didn't have to play this macho man. I guess what's the right word? Machismo. I didn't have to
Yeah.
give off that vibe. I didn't have to be this whole ball of almost toxic masculinity, nor did I have to be this perfect, exemplary model student or model citizen or perfect poster child of, and I think no one can ever be that. No one should ever be held to that expectation or held to account on such a high degree, particularly at age 15, 16, 17, being a senior in high school, being a teenager, but especially being a teenage boy, but being a student in high school. But at the same time, I'm not saying go out there and be rebel rousers and cause problem and ruckus, because we are ultimately fighting an uphill battle, and I do agree with that sentiment. But part of proving that we can overcome that uphill battle, that we can persevere, that we can be resilient, is ultimately being ourselves and being able to make mess ups. For another word I don't want to say here on the air, but you get the point. Messing up. So it's a lot. It's a lot. I think there was some groupthink as a result. I would be a leader and many people would be followers, in right or in wrong, but amongst the blind students. But I was separated from all that my senior year of high school because I was just another one of the high school kids, another one of the high school seniors in the masses. And I had my friends, um, all of whom were sighted actually at the time. I knew of one or two blind students, but I never really associated with them just because we never really connected. And they were
Yeah.
in different grades than I was, and it just never happened. It wasn't a good thing or a bad thing. Just we never really we knew of each other more than we knew each other. Oh, hey, I know X, Y, and Z, but at the same time, maybe I had one conversation with one student. I believe she was a sophomore when I was a senior, but it was like a conversation in passing. I think she was part of the marching band at George C. Marshall High School or something like that. And I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. Yeah, okay, next. It was just kind of like a conversation. By the way, I wasn't one of those annoying kids who would be like, next, but you get the point.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so I think there was a lot of that positively and negatively. I want to circle back before we close. When I had referenced a situation with a teacher of the visually impaired earlier, um, and saying that we as a student body have to apologize for what happened, I don't think we have to apologize so much for what happened as much as we have to apologize for not really understanding the situation or not realizing the insignificance of the situation and blowing it out of proportion. But then that's another thing high school kids do together. So I think that's an example of kind of groupthink, and I was to be the leader in that. Um, but what happened, what transpired, should not have transpired, and I still hold true to the values and the principles of what actions were taken, of what actions I took. I don't disagree with those actions. I do think, however, it was insignificant enough that we should have looked past it as opposed to blowing it out of proportion, because it wasn't something as concerning as we took it to be at the time. But I suppose it's better to approach something as if it's a clear and present danger as opposed to not approach it and say it grows into one. I did want to say, kind of contradicts what I was talking with Jason about the other day. Speech shouldn't be taken down unless it's a clear and present danger. Um, Speaking of that, we will bring Jason back on
Yeah.
here in a future
Any.
episode coming soon.
Yeah. Okay. So, let's wrap this up. So, are there any updates that you would like to? Because I was texting back and forth with him, but he didn't bring anything up to me. I was wondering if he brought anything up to you regarding. I think it was Friday that we're going to try to film the next episode.
Yeah, so he doesn't mind coming on Friday, and I did want to give him that space to talk. We started talking more yesterday evening, and realized that it may be multiple episodes, because there's one thing we want to talk about. I want to focus on is the freedom of speech aspect, and folks should be able to express their speech just as much as advertisers should be able to choose which speech they want to be associated with, which speech expressed they want to be tied to or advertising on or for through platform or be connected to. That was one thing I wanted to talk about. I know the conversation was also to be about data privacy and whether data should be bought and sold, or data mining should take place, and whether regulations should be put in place so data mining or data buying and selling is not abused. I know there was some of that we wanted to talk about. And then there was more tech related stuff, like, cameras that you have in your Alexa smart home devices set up, Echo picking up the Alexa Echo picking up some of what you say, and where does that speech go, that data go, you know and so there was a lot. Oh yeah, and then how Apple manufactures their phones and where they manufacture their phones and the safety of that. So there was a lot we wanted to talk about. So we don't know if that'll be multiple episodes, but all in all, we wanted to bring Jason on, and he said he would come on because him and Oscar had more thoughts to express surrounding my Wild Wild West theory, which I realize is a two-pronged theory. I want it to be Wild Wild West in one way, and I want it to be tamed in another way, meaning I want us to be able to comfortably
You know
express
what?
our speech freely.
Hold on, hold on.
and
Let's
and yeah.
let's save your explanation for that for the episode for the next episode.
Okay, I shouldn't give
Yeah.
too much away because the value of the
We,
episode. But
yeah.
we'll be talking about monetization of speech and demonetization of speech. So, and we want to give Jason and Oscar more of an opportunity to talk. So, all in all, yeah, we do plan on having that Friday evening. Sunday evening, we will have a family episode, family dynamics episode, and I'm right now setting up the list of some guest hosts from my family who may or may not come. Actually, as we were recording this podcast, I was in contact with some of them. It's part of why I was going in and out of mute sometimes. Um, but so I was in contact with them to get some of that to happen. And
And for that episode, because usually, I'm gonna put a disclaimer out there that usually, for that episode, if we do end up having to do it, Naeem, we'll actually put that as kid appropriate. So, because right now, like these episodes, just because there could be a tendency of a slip up of because we all are adults, but for that episode, you know, if there are parents watching this for that episode, we will definitely allow the kids to view it. So
and, and in a future episode, I do want to bring on a parent of blind children. I still haven't reached out to her, however, to talk about how she does it. She has adopted over 6 children from around the world, and she has her own YouTube channel, Six Blind Kids, I think is what it's called. So I want to bring her on so we can talk, and maybe that will be kid appropriate as well. Let us know in the comments below, folks, whether we are putting ourselves at a disadvantage that we're limiting this to just adults or people over 17. Because I heard somewhere that you'll never get monetized if you preset your videos to that. Let us know if that's true. I'm not 100% sure about that. If it is true, then we will open it up to kids and just really ensure that we keep it proper. But we'll find out. Or let us know in the comments below. We do also plan an episode. We don't have a date for it yet, but we plan an episode to talk about how are dreams perceived as a blind individual, as a sighted individual, and plan on having a panel of at least 4 people, 2 of us being myself and Oscar, of course. The other 2 we're reaching out to, and we're hoping that can happen. We could coordinate times all together. It's going to be a very interesting conversation. I had a very interesting dream a couple nights ago, and that dream will come up in the story. So you guys will be very intrigued to know. I don't know if you guys want to know all the details of the dream. It was quite a graphically detailed dream, but
Um,
all in all, all in all, I almost felt like I was going to choke. Excuse me. All in all, we have many episodes coming before our season finale, which will be a Q&A session. So get the
yeah.
word out there. We may do a Q&A session on Skype or through any other platform where we'll send out the links and stuff. So yeah, I mean those are updates on my end. What else do you have to add, Oscar?
So again, the Q&A and potentially, Naeem and I, but I just need to, reach out to this person,
Mm-hmm.
because him and I, like, I just, post on his comment section, a good YouTuber, bringing in like a YouTuber who talks sports. If Naeem, I know that you're not into sports, but
No, it
it's
would
a
be an
it's
opportunity for me. It would be an opportunity for me to learn more about sports. So it's pretty good stuff. And
yeah.
he'll be interested to know we're blind. Does he know we're blind?
I don't think if I put that in the comments in the comment, I can't
That'd be
recall.
cool. Talking about how blind folks consume sports. I think there'll be some for him to gain as well.
Yeah, but I think that would actually be another panel, because I think me and V actually kind of dove into that.
Indeed, but I think he'll be gaining from having that conversation with us. Uh,
Yeah.
we don't like to put our blindness front and center, but it may be a subtle mic drop. It may be a subtle. It happens in the middle of our episodes, and I think that may or may not pique his curiosity while he's on with us. So that may spiral into a different conversation. Who knows? Just thoughts. But anyway, you have a YouTuber. Continue. A
No,
great
yeah.
friend, you were
So
saying?
not a great friend. I don't know him, but again, I think I stated this when Jason and I were talking.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a Redskins fan, from a football team, and I follow different YouTubers, and they give me updates on what the Redskins are doing. They keep it real, so I always donate to his channel. I'm a member, channel member of this channel, and I drop comments here and there, and I just after watching yesterday's, since we're starting this podcast, I'm like, hey, well, it's worth a shot, just putting it in his comment section. Hey, are you willing to maybe come onto our podcast and talk sports with us? So
Indeed. Indeed. There's a lot coming up. Please let us know in the comments below what else you want to hear from us. There
yeah,
are going to be
definitely.
maybe some more story time segments coming out even after this season, as a prelude to our next season, where we just have story time sessions. Those are what are 15, 20, 30-minute long story time sessions like we see on YouTube, because there are many stories we can bring you guys into, my our VRCBVI, our training days, escapades. Um, I do want to
Oh yeah, we do need to. Uh,
have a one-on-one, with you, Oscar, and with input from the fans on some experiences I went through recently and how that's helped me grow in character, experiences that really tested my ability to maintain self-confidence, also maintain a degree of self-respect, but also make sure I didn't fall into a depression as a result of a it wasn't a traumatic event, but something that really caught me off guard, and I didn't realize how much it caused me heartbreak at the time when it happened. So I do want to do something like that soon. I don't know if that'll be part of our season or if that'll just be like an outside segment, but that'll be a real personal
Yeah.
one. So lots of respect I hope from the fans. And Oscar's going to keep it real with me because he knows the journey I went through, and there's a lot for us to talk about with that. So I do want to do something like that in the near future. I'll have to speak to all parties involved in that endeavor and get clarification and permission from them, of course, um, or workarounds if need be. But there's a lot for that. So there's lots of upcoming fun projects we have
The Q
inside
and A
this
is
season
the
and
big
outside.
one. Yeah,
Q&A is
no,
a
the
big
Q&A is
project.
going to be
Indeed,
the
we want to
big
get that
project.
live because we want to
So
know what our viewers want and what they want to consume.
yeah, exactly. And again, we apologize. We want to listen to our fans, but right now we just it's etched in stone the episodes that we want to do. So maybe towards season 2, that's when we're gonna start incorporating
Fan
listening to
requests. Hmm.
yeah. But
Indeed.
anyways, Naeem, where can people find you?
You guys feel free to check me out. I love email conversations, I'll be honest, because I love to really get to know the fans and really have a dialogue more than just a 240 character tweet. And there's some data reservations I have, as you guys know, in the previous podcast episode with Jason, and will come up in future podcast episodes talking about technology. So, email's the best way to reach me. NM, as in New Mexico, Abulhawa being my last name, spelled B as in boy, UELH as in Harry, AWA being like the abbreviation of Washington State, at gmail.com. Again, that's NM Nancy Mary, B as in boy, UELH as in Harry, AWA at gmail.com. Again, NMABUELHAWA at gmail.com. And one last time, fans, NMABUELHAWA at gmail.com. Please feel free to reach out, and I'd love to share discourse with y'all.
I'm Oscar Montiel. You can find me out on Twitter, Oscar J Montiel 37. Um, you can find me the No Nonsense podcast channel. I'll post the link in the video in the description below. Um, you can email me at Oscar OSCAR the letter J MONTIEL 37 at gmail.com to let you know to get you guys' thoughts. This was the No Nonsense podcast, guys, and we will see you guys next time.
Thank you, fam.